dressings and advanced technologies.
Thank you so much. It's a great opportunity to be here, and it's a pleasure to present in this wonderful meeting. Here are my conflict of interest, and mainly I do lots of clinical trial and research, and none of them are relevant to what I'm presenting today to you. I'm here to present in 15 minutes a brief overview of what is available for the dressing, what are the evidence for use of dressing in diabetic foot ulcers. And dressings have been changed significantly since years back, that they had more just a passive role to more active roles that help the microenvironment of a wound and promote wound healing and improve quality of life. And also at the same time, I'd like to bring your attention or remind you, because I'm sure all of you are aware of it, that dressing is part of the story of wound care and wound healing in diabetic foot ulcers. Let's start with a question. I work at Women's College with a wonderful team, including Ahmad, Robin Evans, and the beauty of our work is that we work as a team. Then we cover the blind spot of each of us in our disciplines have some blind spots, and when we work together, we cover these blind spots. And this is a patient that I was seeing in the clinic. He came to us, and we have to fit this patient on urgent basis. But I'd like to bring this question to you, that he asked that, please see me, you are wound care expert, tell me what I have to put on this wound to heal. And it's a recent onset diabetic foot ulcers. A thin foam dressing, and you can use the keypads to answer the question. A mesh dressing with iodine, a thin absorptive dressing, or all of the above could be right or could be wrong. Yeah, you're right, majority, all of the above. And I like to share the story of this patient because he really taught me a lesson that I hope I don't forget. He was a patient that we were seeing him for a long time in the clinic, and he was one of this non-adherent patient, as you see in the callus that you see here, and he didn't want to go with proper offloading. He developed a fever and went to a primary care clinic or a walk-in clinic, because of his diabetic foot ulcer, he received oral antibiotic. But fever doesn't stop, and he still has fever. Then this time he went to emergency and had examination of both feet in the emergency, and they noticed that it's not the foot that he had ulcer before, but it's a new ulcer he has, and switched the antibiotic to IV antibiotic, and a proper IV antibiotic. And he received IV antibiotic, but the fever didn't stop. And he was getting sick. I'm sure you are thinking probably had a resistant bacteria. Any other thought why he's not responding to antibiotics? And he came to our clinic with the hope that we put a dressing on top of this and help him heal the ulcer. And what we discovered, that he had a nail in his shoes. And our chiropodist, that because we are seeing a patient as a team, we usually examine shoes as well as foot. And all he needed was not just we put on the wound, just we removed the nail, and we continue with the same dressing. And the week after, he was much better and significantly improved. I brought that not to undervalue what I'm going to present to you, and not to undervalue the role of local wound care in diabetic foot ulcer, just to remind you that there are much more into this story in order for a wound to be prepared to use of proper wound dressing. And since then, I always look at shoes too. That's the lesson that I learned from him. Before going to the topic of wound dressing, wound bed preparation, I built on what Dr. Rogers mentioned, that tissue debridement and control of infection and inflammation always come before we think what we are going to choose for dressing for these patients, and also E for stand for advanced therapy. Then if there is no debridement, I don't think any of dressing can make a huge difference, and you believe that too. If we go to the basic dressings that are available, these are the 6 main categories of categories that are available for the base of dressing that we have. We have a group of absorptive dressing that has an example, foam is one of them, or calcium alginate, gelling fiber, or superabsorbent dressing that fortunately now we have many thin superabsorbent dressing, because one of the issues with absorption for the dressing exudate and the amount of drainage is the leading point that help us to choose what dressing we want to use. But in diabetic foot ulcer patient, we cannot use bulky dressing because that will add to the pressure that is there. And at the same time, if you choose a dressing that you are going to change every day, then you are adding to the cost, even though you may think that you are choosing a cheaper in terms of price dressing, the lower cost. But everyday dressing change is another issue. The second group are adhesive dressing that not very much are used in diabetic foot ulcer, like film dressings or hydrocolloids. And also we have hydrogel that more is used for dry wounds that are not infected, and it's a good tool for autolytic debridement. And all the contact layers or mesh dressing can contain multiple antiseptics, are another good choice for that for certain cases we can use. What drives you to decide what I'm going to put on this wound? The first question is this a healable wound or a non-healable wound? Because that makes a huge difference. If you have a wound that has a good circulation and you have proper offloading, that's the wound that you have to invest on it. And better that you use the best treatment first. Because this is a wound that is going to heal. But if a wound that is compromised with many other issues that you cannot fix, then you go with a more conservative approach. The second, as we mentioned, is how much drainage is there. Am I going to go with a highly absorptive dressing, or I have to add moisture to this wound, or I have to just maintain the moisture? And then what is available? I think that's a very important thing, and particularly here, we have even in one area of the city only compared to the other area. It doesn't matter what you write there, it might not be available. But what I really believe that what we have to do with dressings is that the same as generic name of the drug, we have to remember the category of dressing. Always when residents come to our clinic or clinical fellows ask, I want to know what dressing I have to use. But it really, what it matters, that you know the category of dressings, and then it somehow it helps with availability if you know that what you want to use. Bioburden is another thing. What is the perceived bioburden? Do we need to use antiseptics for every single dressing? We don't. And we have to decide that where we have to use antiseptics, dressings that contain antiseptics. Cost is another issue, but I think cost effectiveness is an important thing. As much as we are proud of a public healthcare system that everybody has access, but if we look at only the cost and not cost effectiveness, we are eventually losing on that. And how much pain, wound shape do I need to fill a cavity? And where is the location of the wound? What type of dressing I have to choose? Peri-wound skin is important, and if the wound is macerated, how is the skin around the wound, and is there an associated edema that I have to address that? There are multiple studies that compare the efficacy of different dressings. This is one of them, and it's particularly in diabetic foot ulcers. It's interesting that in this study, they look at more than 2,000 cases, and they compare the dressing, and at the end is that, yes, amniotic membrane showed a little higher efficacy, but the rest almost the same. But the problem is, are we comparing apple with apple? Most of the time now, there is a lack of head-to-head dressings in wound care. Then we cannot say which dressing is prioritized. What is the perceived burden? As much as we do not encourage use of antiseptics in every wound, but there are studies that, interestingly, this study looking at 22 trials, and they showed that in diabetic foot ulcers, if there are any sign of colonization or critical colonization, use of more antiseptics increase the healing with a low risk ratio. And is the wound stalled? What do you do with your car when it's at this stage? Do you continue using dressing for 6 months, for 1 year? It's not healing. You have a good circulation, you have done your debridement. That's when we need to use more advanced therapy. Collagen-based dressings are one of the dressing that can stimulate healing, decrease matrix metalloproteinase. Because of time, I just passed through them. Skin substitute and negative pressure wound therapy, we heard about it, and are another options that we can use based on appropriate cases. This is from the new guideline that was just released last week in Europe, International Working Group with Diabetes, and the suggestion was in neuroischemic diabetic foot ulcers. Interestingly, the use of sucrose octasulfate dressing that is not available in Canada yet, but went to the guideline and was based on a study, multiple study, but one of them was published in Lancet. In non-healing neuroischemic diabetic foot ulcers, systemic hyperbaric oxygen, but the guideline didn't support use of topical oxygen therapy, negative pressure wound therapy, post-surgical wound diabetic and non-diabetic, use of placenta drip products, and also use of autologous combined leukocyte platelet and fibrin, but in a context of advanced therapy. We are moving toward biosensors in the wounds, in the dressings that can detect pH, then release the amount of antibacterial we need, or more dynamic role of absorptive effect. That it's interesting, but I don't think it's still available everywhere, but would be great. Also, there are some work on preventative measures that these biosensors be used in diabetic socks and also in insoles, that would be interesting to have it. In general, to wrap up, products are not the major cost driver in wound management. It's only 15 to 20% of wound care cost goes to dressing. Nursing time is much more expensive, and more than that, the complication of diabetes, that instead of being proactive, we are all acting reactive and treating these complications. And begin with the end in your mind, and when you see a patient, have a plan that what is the end of the healing that I'm expecting to have, and what you have best offer to the patient at the beginning. Thank you so much.